Welcome to our Thriving Singles Community podcast, where we celebrate resilience, growth, and transformation through life's challenges. Welcome, everyone. We are here to get to know Coach Peggy Matheson. I look to her as my advisor in many things. So I really appreciate the things that Peggy teaches and talks about. And there's James. Thank you for joining us, James. We're happy that you're here.
Hi, James.
Hey, I was just playing guitar and I saw this come up, so I joined.
Awesome. Love it. This is good. So I'll introduce Peggy. She is a betrayal trauma recovery coach. She's also, I'm just going to start admitting people that come through as I'm talking at the same time. People are coming through. She's also a podcaster. She does a podcast with Sharon Collier. How could I forget her name? I just interviewed her, and I love and know her too. So I just forgot her name for a second. Okay, but then she's also a best-selling author. So here's her book. She said, from Peggy Matheson. And she's the best-selling author because of that book. And she's going to tell her story about the lessons that she's learned about her experience with abuse and betrayal trauma. She is passionate about helping others in this same journey, similar journeys. And the thing that I love most about doing this, and the most difficult and challenging part, is that, I'm sure we'll get into this, but she's really good at what she does, and validating both sides. There's two sides to every story with it, right? So it's so good for her to be able to understand both sides, and she's very great at validating both. She is an incredible coach. I hear from many of her clients, anyone that comes to me to tell me that they are her client, they adore her. They just they learn so much from Peggy. And Peggy just fun. She loves theater arts. She sings. Anyway, she's a lot of fun. You'll find it seems like the people who have the most challenges are the ones that may be the strongest, or maybe the most, even in some cases, the most radiant, because they learn from these experiences, and they learn how to turn them over into growing experiences. So anyway, so I'm excited to hear Peggy's story. All of us are here excited to hear your story.
Thanks. First of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I have to say, it really is my prayer that my story will touch somebody today, or whoever hears it in the future, that there will be something that will ring true for them, or that will inspire them, or will help them in some way in their life. So having a purpose is such a big deal to me. And so I'm happy that my story has a purpose. And it's kind of funny because it had a purpose before I realized I was, going through the challenges I was in my relationship, and after, and it's a little bit different. It's kind of interesting. So let me start back when I was little.
Yes, I love it.
So I actually was born number 8 of 9 children. I am an identical twin. And my younger brother was not supposed to be born because my dad and her doctor convinced her to tie her tubes after we were born. Because my oldest sister at the time was 12. So there were 8 kids under 12. But at my grandfather's funeral, when we were 5 months old, Penny and I, my twin and I, were 5 months old, she got pregnant with my younger brother. So 9 of us were supposed to be on the planet. We all made it. So I was raised in a family with a father who was very conscientious, and I realize now was rather perfectionistic, but he made a good living, but he had to really be careful because he had 9 kids and he had to provide for this large family. And I didn't put these words to it until recently. Somebody pointed out to me that that I was raised in a very achievement-oriented, perfectionistic home. There was a lot of, I love my parents. They were good parents. They are good parents. They both passed now. They are good parents, and we have issues just like everyone. So, but it was very strict, and my parents, unbeknownst to them, really felt like, I think particularly my father, that we had to show up as little adults when we were little. And so that, if people know what that is, that's when you expect a child to do something they are unable to do and be something they are unable to be, it creates shame. So I have dealt with a lot of shame, like a lot of us. And we just weren't really allowed to be children. Play wasn't, I mean, we did play. We had, like swing sets, we had a sandbox. It's not that we didn't play, but it wasn't like this thing that was really encouraged. I had to really learn how to encourage my own children when I had my children. I have 3, and become that mother that was very supportive and encouraging, rather than expecting them, not giving them the praise that they needed until they'd gotten it perfect, which is kind of the way I was raised. It was spared until you got it right. And that's just hard as a child. And so all the things you said about me, like I'm joyful, I'm playful, I have all these things I love to do. I really have to tell you, my saving grace through my childhood, and also through my marriage, which was in many ways a great marriage, and then in many ways very hard, which we'll go into that later, but was my creativity. And as a little girl, I was born in Brigham City, Utah, and when we were 6, my family moved to St. Louis, but I was taking dance lessons from this just lovely teacher that I remember pictures. It was just, she was the perfect dance teacher for little children. And I just had this dream of dancing. I just had this vision of dancing, and I just loved it. And unfortunately, when we moved to St. Louis, it never quite transferred over. I had dance classes and stuff, but the joy wasn't quite there. But when I was 8, well, first of all, let me go back to, I want to tell you about a recurring dream for me that I had when I was a girl. And I was in my bedroom, and there were probably several other beds in the bedroom. And I remember it was a nightmare for me. And I was lying in the bed, and I remember I was right up against the wall, and I was facing away from the wall. And I felt like if I moved, there was a man in like medieval armor, like with a helmet and everything on, with a spear, that was right there. And I was so scared, because if I moved, he was going to touch my shoulder. Like I couldn't move. And it was just this fear of moving.
Oh yeah.
So ironic, because movement is my happy place, and movement is what I do to release, and, dance is a big deal for me, even today. So that was a recurring dream. And it wasn't until I started doing a lot of my healing work later that I realized that was a manifestation of feeling very contained, restricted, and even so, right and wrong was a big deal. I mean, as we got older, there were discussions about what's right and what's wrong, and it was just this huge deal. A lot of judgment, there were a lot of great things too. I'm just telling you the hard stuff, because that's what I had to overcome. So when I was 8, my older sister played the piano, and all of us girls, she gathered us around the piano and taught us harmonies, and we started singing together. So at 8, I started singing harmonies with my sister.
Wow.
So, and then at 12 or at 13, I started taking voice lessons, and had the opportunity to sing my first solo in church. I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, baptized in the church, and I sang my first solo to a lot of praise, which was wonderful. And then I ended up being on the pom pom team, and I ended up being in the high school musical. And then I ended up going to BYU and getting a degree in musical theater performance.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So I really feel like through all those years, that creativity really is part of what saved me. It's part of what really helped me to blossom. But it was scary because I had to constantly, anybody who's never auditioned or done acting as a job, it's hard to maybe to comprehend that half the job is going out to try and get the job. So it's always auditioning, always putting yourself out there, always preparing. It's kind of like always rewriting your resume, always preparing the right song, the right monologue, the right all of that. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
So anyway, so where do I go from here? So I really felt like I really wanted to become my best self, and I really didn't feel like I was good enough when I got married. So I met the man I was married to my second to last year. No, actually, was it my last year of BYU? Anyway, so we got married. We met and we married, and I thought about this. I thought about how much I should talk about this, but it's pretty much a big deal. A big part of my story is him. So we got married, and I knew when I was 12 that I would know the man I was going to marry when I met him. And there's something in our church called a patriarchal blessing, which kind of is like a guide, a blueprint for your life, kind of for your life. And it did confirm that in my blessing. And so I met and married him within 6 months. And I knew he was the man for me. I knew we were supposed to be together. I had some really powerful experiences around that. And I was in heaven. And a year after but I did know from the age of 12, when I first felt this, that there would be a major challenge in our relationship, in our marriage. And I was all in. I was like, it's okay, we can do this, right? From then until I met him and married him, well, the whole marriage, I was like, I'm all in, because this is a God thing. And I know it's a God thing. And so a year after we were married, he told me he was attracted to men. And so I took it in stride, and I thought, okay, this is our thing we're supposed to deal with. So and then anyway, I keep a journal. So I'm gonna fast.
So I want to ask you, was this just sprung on you, or was it new epiphany for him? Was it something that he had hidden? Do you feel? I don't know if that's important, but I kind of wonder how much.
At the time that he didn't really recognize that that's what it was until after we got married. So I don't know. So this whole thing is gonna get flipped on its head as we go down the road about this whole relationship. But so about 7 years into the marriage, things started kicking up for him. The attraction started getting strong, and he started to go to therapy, started to become a big guy in the community, helping, there's a whole group of Latter-day Saints in the Salt Lake area, which is where we were living at the time, that don't want to identify as gay. They want to live true to their values. And so that community, he became involved with them and kind of became a big guy in that community, became a therapist that helped men who didn't want to be gay. And that was all very guided, according to him and according to what I saw. And I was all in on this mission. I felt like it really was a mission. I also felt like personal growth is my middle name. Like I said, I really didn't feel like I was good enough when I went into the marriage, and I thought I had married up. And I really felt like I wanted the opportunity to become my best self. And I knew marriage was a great path for that. I feel like it's God's path for that. I feel like it's divinely set apart for that the marriage covenant between a man and a woman is set up for us to become our best selves. So that's why it's hard. Quite frankly, that's why it's hard. And we meet the unfinished parts of ourselves in those relationships, in those intimate partnerships. And if you are unwilling to really face that, it's going to be a rough road. And so I thought we were both all in, because he was this therapist. He became a leader in this community. He helped to co-create events and retreats, healing retreats for men who didn't want to be gay. That was their choice. I was involved with helping women who were the wives of these men, and we had what we called Wives Healing Journey, and I was very involved in the leadership there. We, about halfway through the marriage, we went through, he was going through his own individual therapy, and we went to his therapist, and I finally felt like I was being heard for the first time through his therapist, and he got really pissed off. We had a 4-hour session, and he really was pissed off and would never go back to therapy for himself, really, or with me. That was halfway through the marriage. It was a 34-year marriage.
Did you see the question Dee's asking?
Yeah, she's asking, was that the Evergreen Foundation? Yeah. He actually wrote the dedicatory prayer for Evergreen, and he made it a 501c3. So yeah, so Deanne, you know about that. So anyway, so fast forward, we had 3 children, and I've journaled all of this. Well, much of it. I have journals from over the years, and I'm really grateful for it. That was something that we were encouraged to do as young women. And I will tell you that has been such a comfort to me to have that documented. And I used to laugh and tell David's the man I was married to, I used to laugh and tell him, because he didn't really keep a journal regularly. I said, when people ask us about, the history of us together, I said, you're not going to have any say, because mine's going to be documented. So I've got the last word, so to speak. Anyway, in the meantime, about halfway through the marriage, actually, we were really struggling. We went in and out of really struggling. Merry Christmas. Hi, Merry Christmas.
Oh, do you know Mary? She's a dear friend of mine. I know. I love her.
Hi, everybody. Ruth, Eric, and Sharon, thanks for coming. Halfway through the marriage, we were living in New Jersey, and he was a therapist at the time. He was a therapist pretty much the whole time we were married, once he got his degree and everything. And he came to me and he said, I don't want to be married to you the way you are. Now, I found out after we divorced that at that particular time, he was in love. I found this out after we were divorced. That at that time, halfway through the marriage, he was in love with his best friend. And so I, in hindsight, look back and go, oh, well, that was him transferring, doing, manipulating me.
Oh.
Him wanting me to change and saying it was, he didn't want to be married to me the way I was, wanting me to change and do what I needed to do. But behind my back, he was actually in love with someone else. So, but it did trigger me, because like I said, I want to become my best self, and I'm willing. And like so many women, we turn inward and we go, oh, what can I do? What is it about me? What can I do to change? Which can be a really a big challenge when you're in a relationship where you're not realizing that you're being abused, that you're being manipulated and controlled. So, but I looked at myself and I was like, you know what? I do want to change. And I knew that therapy was a slow boat to China. And that's what the man I was married to did. And I had a friend who had been in a wheelchair for 4 years by the time she was in her 30s, and was struggling to figure out, they were struggling to figure out what was wrong with her. And she had gone to this thing called a Journey Intensive, which is a 2-day retreat to teach you how to do some healing work. And she did this, and it's called process work. It's the guided meditation work that I now do, but it took her 2 weeks to get out of the wheelchair using that process. And she'd been sick for probably 10 years, but she'd been in the wheelchair for 4. And this is what got her out of the wheelchair. And so I was like, I'm going to try this. So I went to my first Journey Intensive, a 2-day event, and I was really skeptical. It was meditation. It was kind of some of this woo-woo stuff, but I found 2 things that I could hang my hat on. And that was, number one, it's based on the idea that we are divine beings. And number 2, the forgiveness process is a big part of it. And that's accessing the atonement of Jesus Christ. So I'm like, okay, I can buy into this. I'm a divine being, and I do believe in this. And so I did that. And a month later, I did another retreat, which is the next advanced retreat, which was a 3-day retreat. And by this time, I was struggling with the biggest pain at the time was I felt, and even though my husband said to me, I don't want to be married to you the way you are. The biggest pain was I felt like I had this invisible wall between me and my loved ones, between me and my kids, me and my husband, me and my friends. I could see other people had connections that I longed for, and I couldn't seem to access. So after, I don't know, it was a month or 6 weeks after starting to do this work, that wall started to move. And I could feel my way around it. I could see and start to get a sense of how to be that new kind of person. And so it just opened me right up. And I started helping other people. Within a few months, I was in New Jersey. My sister lived in New York, and she said, come up here. I've got people that they want you to do this process with them. So I went up, then I started working with people. And so within a year or so, I became certified in that process. It's called the Journey. And it's what I've been doing now for 16 years. And it's been really, really powerful work. So about 2009, so that whole certification is a year-long process, and it's like 9 modules. Some of them are 8 or 9 days long. They're in person. It's very intensive and really life-changing. And so about 3 years after I started doing this poetry started coming out of me. And I had never said to myself, I want to be an author, but my deepest desire, this desire that I thought I could never have, was, oh my gosh, I want to be in that flow where that spirit or God or the music just comes into me. You know, you've heard people talk about writing a song and it just came, you know, and I'm like, I want the words and I want the music. And that was my deepest desire. And I didn't know if I could do that. But about 2009, this poetry started pouring out of me. And it really was from my healing work. And it's very joyful and it's very poignant, and it has really touched a lot of people. When I read it to them, they're like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just read it the other day. I read one of the poems the other day, which I'm happy to read here. And I read it for a couple of friends. I was at a book signing at a book event, an author's event. And my girlfriend just started to cry. And it's not a sad poem, but it touched her so much with how I expressed and what I said, that she resonated so much with it. And like I said, I'll read it. And this is the picture that goes with that poem. This one, it was the first picture I drew. I drew it in pencil and paper. It took me 10 years to figure out how to digitize so I could get it in, this form here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I have to tell you what I like about it is that it's an adult coloring book, and I love adult coloring books. So I sit with my daughter sometimes we're watching movies or whatever, and I do the coloring. So anyway, that's what I love about it too. I love the poems for sure. I love it all, but it's the art. It's the art part of me. Anyone who loves art and creativity and drawing and expression.
It's fun. And I used to draw as a girl, but about 2011 or 2012, I did a creativity workshop. I was doing, at this point, like I said, I was helping with healing retreats. I was putting on workshops. I was doing different things. And I did a creativity workshop. And in the middle of that, as preparing for that, I hit a wall of fear. So, and I'm going to tell you, when I published the book, I hit that wall of fear. When we started the podcast, Sharon and I hit the wall of fear, and I'm like, and at those moments, I'm like, oh my gosh, why is it my life to do the growth thing, the personal growth thing? Because then I get to face all these fears. And it's darn scary. And every freaking time, I mean, I know what it is, and I've done so much work, and it still comes. So anyway,
to add this too, because it always comes to mind when I hear about the fear and the overcoming, is James, who is in this call.
I was going to say, James talks about, I love the way he handles it.
Metabolize your fears.
That's right.
A question for you. Can you see it?
Would you say that the discovery of your own infinite worth released you from the overwhelming fear? Yes, I would say that's a great question, James. I would say yes. And I feel like I changed significantly by the end of the marriage. So I'm going to fast forward really quick. We were married for 34 years. I've been divorced now for 4. So, that process since has been an amazing process of discovery and understanding of what I have been through. But yes, this discovery, and this is part of what this book talks about, is my journey of coming to love myself, accept whatever the problems are. There's a poem in here that's called, what's the title of it? Clowning Around.
I love clowning around.
This is the
that's what you're wanting.
picture.
You're
Clowning around. I'm an angel with wings. I'm a witch on a broom. I'm a clown in your eyes in a circus of gloom. All the gifts I can give and the spells I can cast and the life I can share if just given a chance. I'm not half as scary as the tone of my voice, and the deeds I have done could be anyone's choice. Okay, so this is now really speaking to the man I was married to, because he had a problem with the tone of my voice. So I'm not half as scary. So it's like the tone of my voice became this.
I have to say, go ahead, finish.
No, but this is also a power over thing. Just for because the tone of my voice, my power, my anger with anyone, and I've worked with a lot of women who've been betrayed, that is our power. That's part of our power. And he didn't want me to show it. And that's part of what I realized after the marriage is over. So I'm not half as scary as the tone of my voice, and the deeds I have done could be anyone's choice. But a clown, yes, a clown with a fistful of balls going round, up and down, and a fool to not let fall all the beliefs that are mine, from the wings to the broom, all the clowning around in a circus of gloom, the gifts I can give and the spell I can cast and the life I can share if I'd give me a chance. Now you've caught on to me, fooling around, stirring my brew and singing out loud. Ah, so you laugh at my scary little game, making light of my dance, though I try to be brave. This isn't really me, and yet it really is, clowning and singing and caring to live. I'm an angel with wings, I'm a witch on a broom, I'm a clown in my eyes in a circus of gloom. All the gifts I can give and the spells I can cast and the life I can share if I'd give me a chance.
That's awesome.
So that was part of me trying to come to love myself. And it really is a journey. This book is really part of my journey of coming to love myself. So I did this creativity workshop and all my fear came up. So I had to write another poem. And then I had a couple of women there that were like, we're really mad we can't buy your book. I'm like, you want to buy my poetry? And they're like, yes. So one of the ladies became my accountability partner. And that was when the adult coloring books were coming out. And I thought, I used to draw. I don't know how to paint. I can't put color, but I could do black and white. So I started drawing for the book, and it's just been a joy, and hard. And it took me 10 years to digitize it and to finish it. And I just want people to say, if you're in a challenging situation, if you're in a relationship, which I realized after I was divorced, that I was in a relationship, a system of control over me. And I could have never published this book and done what I've done in that system. So I was released from that system. He wanted out and he became gay. He chose, people don't like to hear me say he chose, but I know this man and I know the choices he made all along, the little things that he did all along, because he did have options. And there was a point where he said he didn't have any sexual attractions to men at all. And then I realized at the end of the marriage, he actually hadn't done his work after he quit about halfway through the marriage. And he's self-diagnosed as having narcissistic tendencies and forays into addiction. And so anyway.
Hey, Peggy, James has a question. Do you mind if I interject?
Go ahead.
Is your creativity now evidence of your bravery and proof that you have quit hiding? And he says also, what a beautiful poem.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely.
Evidence of your bravery. Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the poems here is this the very first one? Let's see. No, it's the second one. Editing the Poet.
Ah.
So, and this is the picture.
Awesome. And it says, I forgot what it says. What is that word? Love. Let me see.
Adventure.
Oh, yes.
Adventure.
Heart.
Some of the words from it, of being in the moment, I think.
There's heart and adventure. I think it's just adventure, yeah. And then heart. I see heart. And then there's one other word I can't see. That has a Y and I don't know. Maybe that's not a word on the side.
They're all words, and I
awesome.
what words
I love it. It's awesome. And then when you color it, I bet when you color it, it'll stand out.
Yes, it will. Yeah. So this is this poet. So when you're talking about fear and bravery, James, yes, and not hiding. Hiding's a big deal, and a lot of women do hide. And I have hidden, and I have to really be careful not to go into hiding again. I have to get out of my comfort zone and be seen. A lot of women, it's challenging for us to be seen because it's scary and we need to feel safe. So here I am editing the poet. What am I going to do now? Become a poet on paper? Then I have to move with my heart pounding and my eyes open. I mean, I choose to. I'll have to let you know how it goes. I mean, I'll let you know. The living adventure of being in the moment. I mean, living this adventure of being in the moment.
I love it.
There's my scary, I'm going to be a poet on paper poem. Anyway, so I really feel like as I look back after the marriage was over, as I was trying to put this all together, and this is so common with I've mostly worked with women who have been betrayed, and I know men have too. But so I'm speaking more from a woman's point of view, and I, may resonate with some of the men, but I feel like I just lost my thought. Darn it. I spent too much time explaining why.
Well, you're explaining how for women it's about hiding. A lot of it is about hiding. I think it might be the same for men too. Just hiding from, if you're kind of put under the thumb, it might feel like
you were killing it, and then you started to qualify it for men, and you don't need to. You tell your fucking story. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story.
And I was in a system where it was really all about him, and I was all in for that. I was like super supportive. It was his mission. I adored him. I was his #1 fan. And then at the end of the marriage, I really had changed so much. And I did wake up one morning. There was a strength in me that I had not ever seen before. I had never felt it before. And I'm a strong woman, and most everybody would say to you, they've always thought I was a strong woman, but I often don't feel strong, as many women often don't feel strong. But this poem, this was just like a year or so before I knew I was getting a divorce. And we were struggling. There was a lot of disconnection, and he was refusing to go to therapy. I was, wanting to go to therapy with us, but he wouldn't do it. And I woke up this morning, and this presence was there when I woke up. And so I wrote this poem called She, which is part of why I titled this She Said. She. Let me show you the picture too. I hope it's okay for me to share all of these pictures. This is a big part of my story. So you can see the eye in the middle. And the thing you can't see with this is that there's actually an outline of a heart, and a gut and a head. Because those are all really important places where we gather information. And so this is when I realized, and I realized this looking back, that I was a different person, and I no longer was participating in that old system with him. And that, I believe, is part of why we got divorced, because I would not participate anymore. But unbeknownst to me, that's what was happening. So she came to me this morning, the one who's all grown up, the one I've needed all along to say, this is enough. I don't think I know you. How'd you get in here? You've always been somebody else. A longing felt so dear. She's calling me to action, here to help me win the battle I've been fighting, to find the strength within. But I'm not known how to capture what it might be like to be the person out there that seems to get it right, to stop and start and finish and move in one straight line, to make whatever happen and make it all be mine. She came to me this morning, someone else's strong, so still and sure and steady, like she's been here all along. How did this ever happen? Was this the always plan? This wish, this want, this mystery came from foreign land? She came to me this morning and said to stop the whine. She said that I am ready to make my life be mine. It's not about the wish now, it's all about the do. My want and will have grown enough that I can follow through. She came to me this morning. I still don't understand. I know she's me, but can it be that she's my biggest fan?
Yes.
So I had grown enough to really get to this point. And So the man I was married to and I had a strong mission, and we actually were both leaders in this whole community. And we actually had a video of our story out, and I was able to get it taken down when he came out as gay, and it hit international news, and that was a whole other thing.
Oh, wow.
I had,
Oh my goodness.
okay. So I had people wanting my story, but I was also in a group online that people invited me to, which was a straight spouse network, and it's not affiliated with any religion, but it's straight spouses, men and women. And I was kind of ostracized in there because my story didn't jive with what they wanted it to be. My story isn't that.
What do they want it to be? They want it to be happily ever after, or
no, they didn't want. So I have seen, and I believe that and I know there are people, I have friends, longtime friends, who are making it work, where they've done their work, their healing work, and they're living, a gay man is living with well, a man who is same-sex attracted is living with a wife and living and has children and a family, and they're happy, which is what our story was. But what I realized when he came out is it wasn't as much about being gay as it was his personality. And I went looking to figure it out because I was like, what happened? And what I discovered was that he actually, I believe because he self-diagnosed as a therapist as a narcissist. I'm going to use this. And I found out he's a covert narcissist. And because the narcissist didn't directly relate, it didn't fit, but the covert did. And so either way, he's a very controlling personality. And I had so much confirmation when he came out from his friends, from people in the community, where they told me things. I could see the smoke, but I couldn't see the fire. I could feel the smoke, but I couldn't see the fire. So I had so much confirmation. Heavenly Father really was so, he said, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I really went through this process of trying to figure out what my story was, because, and this is where the journals come in. And so then I pretty quickly got into a training that's called Association of Partners of Sex Addicts and Trauma Specialists. And I got got my life coaching training, and I started to work more with women who'd been abused. And I started in that process, I was piecing my story together and coming to terms with what the heck had happened, because I had my happily ever after. And I started to realize I'd been in an abusive relationship the whole marriage. And I went back through my journals and I highlighted things that now I knew what they were. I could see in the writing, I could hear in my words the trauma I was in. I could see the yo-yoing up and down. And so that was a lot. There's a grieving process when you wake up and you realize that that's what you've been through, that it's not, you have to grieve the loss of that, of who you thought he was, who I thought I was, and what I thought the marriage was. So back to James's thing about my confidence, at the end of that marriage, is the only marriage I've been in. At the end of my marriage, I knew who I was. I knew who I was, and I knew what I had done. And I could see him clearly. And Heavenly Father just gave me this clear picture. And I knew where I had been, and I knew that I made the right choice. The choices that I had committed to making, I made. I stayed true to my promises that I made to the man I was married to, that I made to God. And so it really was kind of an interesting thing where I had so much confidence in a way, even as I was picking myself up off the floor, realizing all the trauma I'd been through and going through all of that. And so that's how I got into being a life coach, although I'd done a lot of healing work and helped people a long time. And I've been doing this restorative guided meditation for 16 years. And that when I got married and I started working with this betrayal trauma, I realized trauma was not a word that they used in my training. And in all the years I worked in the journey doing this guided meditation. But as I started doing this work, I realized that's what we're doing. We're healing those moments that we get stuck in our heads, the right and the left brain, and we start to connect the dots, and it starts to process through, and you start to move out of that place and heal those deep places, and the places that have been laid down in the unconscious. And this beautiful process brings them up, because the body stores all of those memories, and it brings them up beautifully and gracefully, and you're resourced, and you tap into the higher self. And it's just this really beautiful, graceful way of finishing unfinished business from the past that's keeping you blocked. So I wanted to share a couple of more poems. Well, before I do that, so I have to tell you, so what happened was, as so many people know, when you're being abused and with the control and everything that was going on, everything hit the fan and hit the media about 20 days after our divorce. And it was just a media firestorm. Like I said, it hit international news.
And I'm sure.
What's that?
They love the gossip, right? Is that what it was about?
And
The-
he really tried to pull me into that, that vortex of his. And I was really counseled, and so gratefully that I did not do anything. I did share my story, and I knew that I would get pummeled no matter what I said.
Mhm.
I knew that would give him attention, and I knew that I would get pummeled because my story is outing him as an abuser. It's, he was outing himself as gay, and I was outing him as an abuser. And so there was a lot of fear around that, and how to say that. But the hard part is that the lie is the abuse, and he was not telling the truth in the media. And that was really hard for me. And that's abusive to me. He was withholding truth so that he could, finesse and make it the way he wanted it to be. And so that was really hard. So by this time I hadn't published my book, and I hadn't been writing as much, but I woke up one morning and this poem was in my head. And this poem, I've had clients say, can I take that poem and share this with my therapist so that they understand what I'm going through? Okay, so by this time, I blocked his phone. I was doing no contact except for email. That was the only way. And I wasn't seeing him at all, except for at a distance a few months later at one of my son's graduations, right? So this poem came up. It's called I Got Hit Last Night. He's never hit me, and he's never been violent except for during the divorce when he threw a glass on a marble floor, on a granite floor. And
That's
I
good.
didn't.
Physically, that's one.
It's a threat, and that's the thing is I didn't. If you feel threatened in any way, that's abuse. That's, and so anyway, so I got hit last night. I didn't see it coming. It wasn't like I knew it. It crossed me with a thumping that was bumping, but not in black and blue. It thumped and bumped inside me, and I knew it wasn't true. He said it like he meant it, but something seemed so wrong. The words he said, I said, to me did not belong. I'm sure I didn't mean that. It wasn't my intent. So please forgive and let this rift not cause more discontent. But on and on he threw it and kept the pummel round until he'd gotten to it and left me on the ground. I didn't even know it, but somehow I could hear my heartbeat had been beaten and I had disappeared. I'm sure that something happened last night, and all I know is this: it wasn't with a pumping of a tightly wound up fist. It's not like I could see it or even feel the pound, but something had been beaten and the swelling was profound. I got hit last night. I didn't see it coming. It wasn't like I knew it. It crossed me with a thumping.
That is a good one. So I can see why your friend would want to share that with their therapist, because it's just describes exactly what they're going through.
It describes the emotional abuse, the invisible abuse that nobody can, that leaves us so confused. We have no idea what just happened. And we're trying to make sense of it, and we've just been beaten up. Emotionally, we don't, and we're trying, and we're left in trauma. It creates this trauma. So anyway, so I was not talking to him at all. It just was abusive to me, his texting, and so we were divorced in 2018, and in the end of 2020, so 2 years later, I finally had was working with a publishing coach, a self-publishing coach, and I was going to publish this book. And it was going to be over for Valentine's. I was going to do it as a Valentine's launch, and which was perfect for the book. And I had just frozen in fear, and just all of my crap was coming up, which it does every time you try to stretch and move forward. Oh. And the interesting thing is I realized, so I was putting up a website In the back of my book is is an author, a little note about the author, and I out him as an abuser there. And on my website, my about page talks all about this, and I out him as abuser there. So this was the first time that I was publicly stating what had happened to me.
Yeah.
And so there was a real reason in some ways for that fear, although none of it's come about, but because I could be skewered on either side of the media,
Yes.
gay or not gay or whatever. And the fact that I call him out as an abuser I just was scared. So here's a funny story. And my daughter she said, Mom, if there's ever a story written about our lives, you have to start with this scene. So I'm going to tell you this scene. So this is like 3 weeks before the book's being published. I've got the website ready, and I feel like I'm hitting this wall of fear, just petrified. And it's Friday, and I'm like, okay, I'm just like, I just got to sit in this. I've got to feel this. I've got to acknowledge this is what's going on. And then the next day I had a first date, and we ended up having to cancel what our plans were and change to something else. So we were going to go to the theater and decided to go to the aquarium. Well, the aquarium, you have to get tickets for a specific time. So we got 2:00 tickets. So we went to lunch first, and then we went to the aquarium. Well, the aquarium has these big open, high ceilinged hallways, and then out of the, and into these rooms where the aquariums are dark, like these big open spaces that go into this dark. So I'm with this guy. I've been with him for like an hour and a half. I'm not super excited or comfortable with him. And I'm walking right by this dark aquarium area, and all of a sudden, out of the dark, I hear, Grandma. And it's my grandson. And out comes my then 4-year-old grandson, and then his older brother, and then my daughter, and then her dad, my ex. So I have not seen him on purpose for like 2 years. And on this first date, all of a sudden, we're not even from a distance seeing each other. We're like right together. At this time, they were not planning on being there. They were supposed to be doing something else to celebrate my oldest grandson's birthday. And here they were. And so this awkward moment, we said hi, and I, of course, smiled, hi, la, la, la. Anyway, and then we walked away, and all I thought it was, I just wanted to bolt. I just so badly wanted to bolt. And unfortunately, this guy I was with just really didn't get it. And he kind of turned it on me by the end of the date, and it was like done. But anyway, it was very powerful for me. I'm like, wow, how do you bring that up, right? For 2 years, I'm about ready to publish this book, about ready to call him out publicly as an abuser. And anyway, when I saw my daughter the next day, she laughed and laughed. She says, Mom, that hat story. She said, do you know how many things had to be in place for us to be in that place and run right into each other? I'm like, I know. So anyway, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I want to share this last poem with you. And my journey has been one of overcoming really a lot of negative thoughts about myself. And a lot of people looking on the outside and don't see that, because I'm a performer. Forgot to say, I have a degree in musical theater performance. I've been on stage, I've been in films, and I did talk a little bit about that.
So people think confidence in that.
Yeah, they see that as confident. They see that I don't, people really read things from the outside and they don't really know. But I still, to this day, as much work as I do, because I am putting myself out there constantly, I have to be vigilant. And I still have voices sometimes in my head, and I still have to do my self-care. That is so vital. Self-care is, when we're talking about emotional abuse or any kind of abuse or being in a controlling situation, self-care is life-giving. It is absolutely essential. You have to take care of yourself. And there's a lot of different ways to do that and how to figure out how to do that and your values and everything. And I work with clients doing that a lot. It's such a huge piece of it. So I have to spend a lot of time, not a lot of time, but I have to be vigilant. You know, I have to take care of myself. So, but this creativity is part of my self-care.
Very good.
And this opening into healing these wounds, and this little girl that I talked about that felt like so like that dream where she couldn't move is now out playing. And this is a big part of what this book is she is playing. And there's a poem in there when I faced doing the creativity workshop called Stomp Stomp Wine Wine, where she came to me and she was so mad that I still had that little black bag on my back, that baggage I was carrying. And I'm like, I thought I'd gotten rid of it. And she's so mad because I wouldn't come out and play because I'm so worried, you know, all this stuff. Anyway, so this tub of lard. So this is the picture on the front. Like I said, this was my very first one. Scared to death, didn't know if I could really draw, if I could do this and how to digitize. And anyway, this is the picture for Tub of Lard.
Okay.
This is the poem that I read to my friend just a couple of weeks ago, and she cried at the end.
Okay, everyone, yeah, your tissues.
This resonates. This, I think, so resonates. Tub of lard. That's not me. But I have a thickness, sure as can be. It creeps on in and paints me fat, keeping me worried about all that. Then the thoughts come flooding too. They keep me from really seeing you, for I'm worried about me now, how I look. I know it's not the cover, but the book, yet I have a critic in my head that makes me feel so bad that I eat bread or stuff my face at night when I'm sad. That old fart, she makes me so mad. So I worry and I fret and I work out and I sweat, and the thickness starts to go and the critic starts to say, see, you're not so fat now. You are better than the rest. And I should kick her out and lock the door, but I really like the fact that she thinks I'm the best. So I seesaw and I gloat and I float and I sweat and I put her in the closet and I play this little game. If I just forget about her, then maybe she'll go away. Then the thickness starts to creep and at the door she starts to peep. And here I feel all bad again and names start flying like fat again. Oh, stop it now. I'm done with this. And hug her big and plant a kiss. I love you anyway, I say, any way you choose to play. And so it starts. I change the game to loving me and her the same. So now, no matter what she says, I send my love and go to bed.
That's awesome.
So that's about self-love and compassion for yourself. And I will end this, and you guys can ask me any questions you'd like, with this thought. Super, super important. If you do not love yourself, you cannot love anyone else. And this is where a lot of pain comes from, and a lot of unhealthy things happening. And I really believe, because of things that the man I was married to told me at the end of the marriage, he told me directly that this was the main issue. If he had loved himself, really loved himself, and done the work he needed to do, which I realized at the end of the marriage, he hadn't done his work for half the marriage.
He wanted you to do the work, right?
Right. And that would have made a difference.
Yes.
But loving ourselves. So when I say love me and her the same, it's such a big deal. So, and that's part of the self-care. So there you go.
Peggy. Hey, you guys, you're welcome to turn on your cameras if you'd like to join in the conversation if you have anything, if you have any questions for Peggy.
Thanks for the beautiful comments too. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes. Did you see all of them, Ruth?
Yeah, Deanne and Ruthie. Yeah, thank you so much.
So very good. Does anyone have any? You know what? I do have some questions actually. Let me look at this real quick.
Or comments? I mean, anything.
I got a question. I'm interested in this creativity that's come around, right, through this process.
Mhm.
I have had a similar experience, but I'm wondering if now that you look at it, do you feel like you were deeply creative all along, but not able to see it until you could hold your value?
It's a good question.
That is a good question. Yes, probably so.
Yeah.
Years of being on stage, I remember it was just so, I just was always fighting this feeling that I wasn't good enough.
Mm.
I wasn't pretty enough. And really my marriage really capitalized on that doubt. Self-doubt has been just the biggest part and pain and of my existence. Although very little anymore because of all the work I've done. It's really not as, but that confidence in that creative space absolutely opened up with all of my healing work. There is just this wellspring of creativity. And I really believe there's so much healing. And I feel like all that creativity really kept me in a place where I was kind of held during those difficult times, my marriage. And so it just feels like this incredible gift and miracle that I've had this all along. And that now I see it and feel it so fully, as you see in the poetry that I've written.
Right.
But everybody can have that. I mean, this joy is possible. It's possible. We don't have to be holding on to these old stuff. We don't have to be afraid all the time.
That's
And
right.
fear looks like different things depending on, it can look like control and not fear. So
But when you're in the middle of it, you don't see it as control, do you? You see it as,
no, not really.
yeah,
Thanks, Jay.
hopefully you can see past that. Yeah. Good. Very good, Peggy. Oh, I was just thinking of all the things that you were saying in the poems and stuff. You provided so much good stuff, golden stuff that we can go back and watch it and make clips of it and share it. I think it was so fun that you share every piece that you shared was so valuable, and just grateful that you shared that. So good. So I want to ask you, and Sharon may have some questions. I don't know. Sharon knows you well. With your podcast that you guys do each week. I am a little curious about what you do with people women and men. I know you work with women and men. Can you just explain a little bit about some of the guided meditation? What does that look like? How does that help people? That kind of thing. That would be
Interesting, because we just did a podcast this week, episode 23 of the Date to Your Potential podcast with Sharon Collier and myself, where I explained why this guided meditation works that I do. And then I have you go through a very short one that's not like what I do in individual or group sessions, which, by the way, I am starting group sessions for men and women for a 6-week group session, December 7th. So I will be giving you that link when I've got the Eventbrite.
Yes, do that.
There's going to be a separate group for men and a separate one for women, and it will be guided meditation. And I found out that it can be really powerful to do it in a group, not as much detail as when we do it individually. So this is what the guided meditation looks like. So, it's just really getting you into a place where you're focusing on your breathing, relaxing. That relaxation is such an important part of getting your brain to the right wavelength, which is the lower theta, upper theta, lower beta alpha state. And you use imagery, and I guide you through imagery, or I work with you with what's kinesthetically, what's going on in your body, what's the feeling, what's the emotion, and we can go, and they're combined. So the reason that, and so it takes about, I call them processes that work that are about 30 minutes long, and then I have some that are like an hour and 15 or an hour and 30, depending on you and just different different things, but we usually do, it's at an 1.5-hour session. It usually gives us time to coach and talk and get into it and figure out what the intention is and what we're going to dive into. And sometimes we don't know it all. So their body keeps a record of your life. So we access all of that through the guided meditation. So you get into a relaxed state and I start guiding you through a visualization and using the 5 senses. And usually it's the kinesthetic, auditory, hearing, and then the visual, that those 3 are the main ones. So kinesthetic is feeling, sensing, all of that. That is the language of the non-conscious mind. So I've been trained on how to help you access that and to work with you based on your primary sense. Most of us have a favored sense and then a secondary one as well. So, so then we go through this meditation and usually it brings up a memory and often it's a surprise because the conscious mind doesn't know. It's the deeper self that it's coming up from deeper inside of you. And I want to say that in all the years I have done this, which is 16 years, I have never seen it bring up a memory that the person wasn't ready to deal with. So the body knows. We have such this incredible tool in our bodies. The body knows what you're ready to let go of. And so it of course comes off in layers, but it's so much faster and so much more holistic than like talk therapy. Now I love talk therapy. I think it has its place. I have a therapist myself. When I need, I go. But it just is, it's this particular process is, to me, is deeply spiritual and also very holistic. And it's faster because you don't have to go through the thinking mind. You go to the deeper part of you where it's all laid down, where the beliefs and the patterns are there, right? So, and there's also, like I said, there's almost always, there's some kind of forgiveness that happens, and that is accessing the atonement. And it might be just forgiveness for a small thing, or it might be a big thing. I mean, I have ways of helping you through that. So if you're worried that you don't know how to forgive, don't worry about it. We can work with that. So, but this forgiveness is so freeing. So, and you release and you let go, and there's visualizations we do resourcing, there's beliefs that come up and changing those belief patterns. There's also your higher self that we invite to come and to have this conversation that's needed. Usually there's words that haven't been said or unfinished business, like I said. And then there's a shift. You can feel the shift or you can see it. And what I tell people is, some people will go, but I don't believe this. And I said, can you see it? Well, yeah, I can see that it's gone or that it's whatever it is. And the words did come up. And yes, I said, okay, that's all we need. You don't have to believe it, because the deeper part of you is doing it outside of your conscious mind. And the conscious mind is the one that's trying to protect you. And we love that, but we put it to the side while we do this and tap into that deeper knowing part of you. And it's just amazing. I mean, I've had clients that have said to me, you have changed the trajectory of my life. Clients who have been in severe control and abuse, even a trafficking sort of a situation. And then I have recent clients who've been in the singles world who come to me with, like, they can't let go of a girlfriend. And within a few processes, they've got a new girlfriend, and like their life is, they've moved forward, right? In something that they've been stuck in for months and even years. And it's just, I just love it. I am the kind of person that I need to know that what I do is viable. It is helping people. It does work. And I can tell you, I've done this for 16 years and it does work. So.
And yes, that she was saying she does these, she's doing some December 6th, you said it starts. And
Yes.
Tell us a little more about that. And I can let you go. We can put it in the group, but that was one thing that I thought would be helpful for anyone that wants that resource. It's like 6, I tried to remember what you said. I wrote it all down. And of course I don't have my notes with me. actually 6 weeks. Is that what you said it is?
It'll be 6 weeks. It's
And
going
then-
to start December 7th on a Wednesday night, 6 o'clock for the women's group, 8 o'clock for the men's group. It'll be an hour and a half each session. We'll have time when we start to kind of check in. I like to do a check-in, see where everybody's at, kind of what they're feeling, what's coming up for them, do a little bit of coaching, and then we dive in. And then at the end, we do some journaling, which has proven to be super powerful. The journaling at the end, when you're tapped into that deeper part of yourself, whew, there's some great counsel that comes from that. So it'll be once a week for 6 weeks. We're going to do the 3 weeks before Christmas. Then we're going to take a break in between Christmas and New Year's. Christmas is on a Sunday, New Year's on a Sunday. So that week we're going to take off. And then we're going to do 3 at the beginning of the new year. So it's going to be a great way to transition, let go of the past, open into something new for the new year. So it'll be 6 weeks like that. Yeah. And if you bring a friend, I'm doing a 2-for-1. So if you want to get a really great price, bring a friend. And it can be someone of the opposite sex. You'll just put them in the other group. So yeah, did that answer?
Yes, it did. I'm making notes, but then I will also want you to share with me any links or whatever that I can pass on.
I'll do that.
Thanks you guys so much for joining us. And Peggy, thank you for being willing to share that. I think the reason that that I love about it the most is that it helps us to figure out ways that we can relate with you. And then I believe that in understanding and getting in tune with our stories, that we get to understand ourselves. And even listening to you, the things that you've shared tonight, and James said, thanks, Peggy.
Thanks.
The things that I heard from you tonight, some things were coming up for me that I didn't know, that I definitely know that there's some stuff hidden inside there. I feel a guard. I feel a wall. I feel the pain, but I have some kind of guard in front of it that's keeping
Good
me
awareness.
Yes.
Was the first step. That's good. And then the willingness to do what you need to do to get past that. The willingness, that's the next step.
Willingness, yes. Well, that's the thing. And that's what I would be nervous about, is diving into it. But it's where the healing would be, right? It's not going to kill me.
If you were talking about doing the guided meditation, there's all kinds of safety nets put in place, already in place. So the way that's scripted, the way that I do it, the tools that I have, it's already in place.
But what is the worst thing that can happen? I guess I'm thinking, there's just emotions.
Nothing bad, Sheri. I've done the worst kinds of trauma recovery stuff, and this is one of the better ones. You get to a place of peace without the pain of like really confronting stuff. It really does go right to your subconscious.
Awesome.
I love what you're doing, Peggy.
Thanks.
Can I give it a plug too, really fast? I look like a Walmart person today, so I'm not going to get on camera. But if you do,
I think I'm in a Walmart blanket.
If you could only see. But if you do the group is a great place to start. If you want to start doing guided meditation, the group is just a really good place to start. I just want to plug that because I've done both. I've done both with Peggy. She's fantastic.
Thanks, Sharon.
You're welcome.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah. I don't know that I'm afraid of anything. It's just that's definitely feelings that I'm not used to confront. I'm not used to feeling. And so anyway.
That's good. It's bringing stuff up for you, which is important. It's important to listen to that and to go, I'm curious.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, have a good night. Please share the episode you like with your friends to help our supportive and thriving singles community grow. If you want to be a guest on our show, join our online community discussions and let's get connected.